people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Another installment of what is fast becoming the most popular segment here on the channel. Ring IQ hate mail to my previous tweet that Joshua versus Paul is many times bigger than Gervonta Davis versus Paul. A disgruntled Twitter user who goes by the name Monroe, Money Row, responded by saying, LMAO, people in the US don't give a damn about AJ outside of hardcore boxing fans. As if the people at Netflix only cater to Americans? There goes more of that token American exceptionalism I'm always talking about. I responded by saying people in the US don't buy shit, so their opinions don't matter much. Shoplifters can't give product reviews with any merit. To which Monroe responded, shut the fuck up, dumbass. You aren't smart enough to make conclusive statements without facts, dummy. Posting a screenshot that reads, the United States has the largest consumer spending market, making up about 29% of global consumer spending. But this is not solely due to purchasing power. While Americans have high nominal income, the high cost of living in the United States means that a significant portion of spending is on necessities like groceries and rent. But where does boxing factor into necessities that Americans spend money on? Because Americans are spending so much money on boxing right now, so much so that all the major broadcasters in America have walked away. Monroe should have thought about that before he posted this. How NBC, HBO, Showtime, Fox, ESPN have all walked away from the sport of boxing, and it can't be because of how much money Americans are spending on it, dumbass. You know what his problem is? His real problem is he doesn't like the suggestion I made that Anthony Joshua versus Jake Paul is many times bigger than Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul. That's what got his titties in a twist. That's why he's angry.
Why are you mad?
Because Anthony Joshua is an international superstar and Gervonta Davis at his very best is local.
Why are you mad?
Because every quantifiable metric suggests that Anthony is a bigger star than Gervonta. He has a bigger social media following than Gervonta.
Why are you mad?
Because he generates more money than Gervonta, makes more money than Gervonta.
Why are you mad?
Because Gervonta Davis fucked up his own bag, not being able to keep his hands off girls. Every time he gets locked up, it's for the same thing. Every time. Every time without fail, except this time, it costed him in a neighborhood of $40 million. He's a fucking bozo, and so are you. Some snot-nosed hood booger living with his mom likely doesn't spend 1 red cent on the sport of boxing, doesn't buy any pay-per-views, including Gervonta's, wants to preach to me about U.S. buying power with bums like you. Who needs enemies? You're the guys that support Gervonta. Coincidentally, you're the guys that steal his pay-per-views. You want to talk about U.S. buying power? If we were talking about buying pots and pans or bags of rice, you might have had a point. Things you shop for at the grocery store, or commodities, none of which encompass boxing, you fucking bozo. And even if analyzing that kind of data ain't your forte, use yourself as an example. How many pay-per-views do you actually buy? How many of you bought in the last 12 months? How many of you bought last year? How many subscription platforms are you subscribed to or have been subscribed to for boxing? Or was it that you weren't the one subscribed to them so much as your mommy and your daddy? And thus, you wouldn't know, are you even the head of your household? Do you pay any bills aside from your phone bill, your cell phone bill? Do you even pay that? You fucking bum. Use yourself as an example. How much money do you specifically, spend to see boxing? You fucking bum. I'd wager it's not a lot, because that's what the numbers show. Americans are not spending more and more money to see boxing, which is why so many of the major networks have walked away. So the idea that you're going to sermonize to me about U.S. buying power when it comes to boxing?
Are you stupid?
No, he's angry because I suggested that Gervonta Davis ain't that big a draw.
Oh, you mad?
Why are you mad?
Because Gervonta Davis hasn't put up decent numbers since the Ryan Garcia fight. That's the only time he ever put up real numbers with a pay-per-view. The rest of the time, he don't sell shit.
Why are you mad?
Is that your idol? You look up to him? A serial domestic abuser, and why? Because he comes from a crummy neighborhood like you come from a crummy neighborhood. So what?
Who cares?
It's all besides the point anyway, because he don't sell shit. The only time he ever sold anything worth talking about was with Ryan. Did he sell anything with Frank Martin?
No.
Did he sell anything with Lamont Roach?
No.
It's the ballpark figure for Gervonta Davis's last 2 pay-per-view appearances. I can guarantee you it's not in the neighborhood of what he did with Ryan.
Because he ain't that big a draw, and he never was.
No corporate sponsorships, no major brand deals, where Anthony Joshua is a spokesman for Hugo Boss. The only thing Gervonta's a spokesman for is domestic abuse.
Where he is a brand ambassador for Range Rover, Gervonta Davis must be an ambassador for women's shelters.
Cause he's the kind of guy keeps women in him. Ain't that big a draw, never was. And that's why before the fight got axed, fucking tickets for the fight weren't even selling. They had to slash the prices because they weren't moving. And you're telling me?
You want to preach to me about U.S. buying power? Why don't you do some buying of your own?
So when the argument is that Americans don't care about Anthony Joshua, who said anything about Americans? Netflix only caters to Americans?
No, dumbass.
Netflix is a global streaming platform, not an American one. When the argument is that Americans don't care about Anthony Joshua, Americans don't care about him, or their own fighters for that matter, since they don't buy shit.
Maybe they don't buy his fights, but they don't buy their own fighters' fights either. So what's your point?
They weren't buying tickets to Gervonta's fight with Jake Paul, so what's your point? The British boxing community was not likely to stay up till the wee hours of the morning for Gervonta versus Jake, but if it's Joshua versus Jake...
Oh yeah, they'll tune in. And that's what Netflix wants. So you're bringing an entirely different demographic across international waters to the table. Something Gervonta can't do because Gervonta is local. Gervonta is small time.
It's the only time you bums got. Small time.
So shut the fuck up and tune in December 19th for Joshua versus Jake, dumbass.
Now moving away from the unapologetically stupid, veteran boxing commentator Al Bernstein reacted to the news by saying, "I honestly don't quite know what to make of Paul versus Joshua. For a novice cruiserweight to fight a big, strong, former heavyweight champion is kind of crazy on the face of it. It looks like an insane mismatch with dangerous implications. But then again, we live in an upside-down time, and Paul is such a unicorn in the world of boxing. Apparently, it must be a viable event to do it in terms of commerce, because they are going to do it. So, I guess we'll all see how it plays out."
Crazy is right. You normally hear about fighters needing a 6-week camp, an 8-week camp, sometimes a 12-week camp, where Jake Paul has but 5 weeks to get ready for a short-notice opponent who's even more dangerous than the last guy he was supposed to fight. But that's the story, that's what's going on. Veteran boxing scribe Dan Raphael said, "I've talked to various extremely experienced, top-level boxing matchmakers with no rooting interest. They've all said to me that they think Joshua obliterates Jake and can't understand why he took a fight in which he likely goes to sleep."
Desperation. Like what I told you in my previous video. For Netflix to be involved, the fight has to be big, but Jake is running a shortage of big names. He's all out of retired MMA fighters to pick on. In the world of boxing, they did try for Ryan Garcia, but Oscar De La Hoya wouldn't allow it. There was a blurb about Terrence Crawford, but I guess that Terrence was not interested. Enter Anthony Joshua.
And still, there are those out there questioning the legitimacy of this fight, if it is a fight and not a staged event.
What, Jake Paul just signed his own death warrant?
Or is it all rigged? Is it all staged? To that, veteran boxing scribe Mike Kopinger said last time addressing all the absurd comments, "No, Anthony Joshua is not going to take it easy on Jake Paul. It would be very hard to sell a Tyson Fury fight next year if you are taking the distance by essentially a boxing novice. This is a real heavyweight fight. AJ has all the money in the world, and expect him to go for it like he did when he blasted out Francis Ngannou in 2 rounds last year.
That's what I've been telling you. For those who might be thinking AJ's playing Dancing Bear in Jake Paul's circus, AJ's not strapped for cash to where he has to do that. He has enough money now to retire on that he doesn't need to be a party to a fake fight. He's not doing this for a retirement check because Turkey still plans on using him in February of next year. What Anthony Joshua likely sees here is a big opportunity for an easy lick and a lot of money. The fight fell in his lap.
What Jake Paul sees here is a last-ditch effort to put on a big fight before the year is out, to keep Netflix involved, because Netflix ain't gonna be involved for any old event. They weren't involved in the Chavez fight. They only want the big ones.
They took the Tyson fight, but you see they didn't bankroll the Chavez fight. They won't bankroll just any old fight, only the big ones.
That's why the Tyson fight was on Netflix. The Chavez fight was on DAZN. Now this one's back on Netflix.
AJ's not doing with this fight what Gervonta was doing with this fight. I told you that already. Gervonta was trying to retire off of this one, where Anthony plans on coming back in the coming calendar year for a Saudi Arabian campaign, hopefully against Tyson Fury. So the idea that he would hurt his own brand being Jake Paul's Dancing Bear when he plans on still selling fights after that wouldn't make sense.
That he's gonna go easy on him or worse, take a dive, wouldn't make sense.
But it makes sense that Jake wants to fight him.
Makes sense out of desperation. Makes sense because he's in a pinch and he needs to put on a big fight to keep Netflix at the table. Makes sense that maybe in his own mind, he thinks Anthony is chinny enough that he can chin him.
Makes sense that even if Jake Paul loses, people are expecting him to lose, but at least he tried. He's got the built-in excuse that he's a novice boxer facing a former two-time unified heavyweight champion, so when he loses, at least he gave it a go. At least he tried. First solid shot that gets in for Anthony Joshua on Jake Paul. Jake might feel the wind from those punches, take a dive himself, decide,
The hell with this shit.
first solid shot that gets in, and he feels any hint of damage, he goes down, he stays down. I don't need any more of this.
Fuck this.
Anthony's not doing what Gervonta Davis is doing. He's got plenty of money that he doesn't need to sell his soul to Jake Paul for more. And that's what makes this situation different. That element of danger is what makes this fight more attractive. A lightweight versus a cruiserweight that isn't even really sanctioned by a commission. That's just a circus.
That's why they had to come up with that special category for that fight. Hybrid Pro. They didn't have to do that for this one.
You see that? They didn't have to do that for this one. And if Anthony signed on, it's not because he's hard up for some money and willing to sell his soul. It's got to be because it's an easy lick for him. He looks at it as an easy 40 to 50 million.
Jake might see it as a glorified loss. If I lose, well, look at who I'm fighting versus what amount of money I'm making. In effect, making Jake Paul a true prize fighter, because that's what a true prize fighter would do.
Elsewhere in the heavyweight division, heavyweight champion Oleksandr Usyk, you may have heard today, just vacated the brown belt. Vacated the WBO title as Fabio Wardley is now set to be elevated to full champion. Heavyweight champion Oleksandr Usyk vacated his WBO world title this Monday, with Britain's Fabio Wardley set to be elevated to full world champion as a result. Usyk knocked out Daniel Dubois in June to become a two-time undisputed heavyweight champion holding all four belts, but we all know that's usually a temporary situation. Very few of the undisputed champions we've seen stayed undisputed for a long while.
Most end up giving up one or some of their alphabet titles shortly afterwards. The only two undisputed champions who stayed undisputed for a stretch were Canelo Alvarez at super middle and Naoya Inoue at super bantam. The rest of the time,
undisputed reigns don't last very long. Usyk became undisputed for the second time, but he was then ordered to fight their interim champion at the time, Joseph Parker. However, citing injury, Usyk was granted extra time to recover, with Parker choosing to fight Wardley in an effort to stay active. On October 25th in London, Wardley stunned Parker with a round 11 stoppage to take the interim title, which has resulted in the Englishman being elevated to full heavyweight champion. The World Boxing Organization announced today that it has received formal communication from Team Usyk regarding the future of the WBO Heavyweight Championship. After thoughtful consideration, Usyk is elected to relinquish the title, the WBO said in a statement. The WBO extends its profound respect, admiration, and gratitude to Oleksandr Usyk, an undefeated two-weight WBO undisputed world champion and a fighter who has earned and exemplified every right, privilege, and honor associated with the WBO Super Champion distinction. His career stands as one of the most extraordinary and historic of the modern boxing era. After Fabio's win over Parker, Fabio Wortley called out Usyk, and there was confidence from his team that a fight would happen. However, Usyk vacating the belt indicates he may not face Wortley next. Usyk, who was also undisputed at cruiser before he went on to conquer the heavyweight division, has said he will fight next year, but his next move is unclear. There was a blurb, a quote actually, from Usyk that he means to fight 5 more times. I didn't know what to make of that.
At 38 years old, he wants to fight more times. On the schedule that he's been on, he'd be fighting well into his 40s.
He's been fighting roughly once a year for the last 6 years. Last year was the only year in recent memory where he fought more than once in a single calendar year, but the rest of the time, it's been one fight a year. One fight in 2019, one in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, one fight this year.
And I'm to believe that at 38 years old, he's going to keep fighting on that schedule 5 more times? I don't think so, but the question is, if he's not, then why did he say that?
You know that he might have just said it in jest. He might have said it in passing after the media keeps asking him the same question over and over, looking for a quote. He gave them a quote. Maybe he didn't mean it, or maybe he meant it at the time, feeling so good off the knockout win over Daniel. Maybe he meant it when he said it, but now that he's had time to sit down and decompress and think about the future...
Is he ducking Fabio Wortley?
Well, you'd have to be about as sharp as a volleyball to come to that conclusion. If he vacated the WBO title, I don't think it's for fear of Fabio Wortley. We might have seen other situations where the ducking accusation could be made on that premise, but there's a lot more nuance to this than just dropping a belt and rushing to assumption. I don't think Usyk has anything to be afraid of in Fabio Wortley, and if he dropped the title, I don't think that's the reason why. Lest we forget, he dropped the IBF title to let Anthony and Daniel fight for it. Remember that?
I saw a small cluster of individuals claiming he was ducking Daniel then. Ducking the rematch just for him to go and fight Daniel again and knock him out. Knock him out worse than the first time.
So understand that there may be some nuance to this. Some nuance to Usyk dropping a brown belt all of a sudden, where he means to keep fighting on into the coming calendar year. Who against? I don't know, but it's not Fabio.
I don't know what makes sense for Oleksandr Usyk at this point in his career, except retirement. If you ask me, that's what he should do.
But we'll see what he does.